On April 17, 2005, the state chapter in New Jersey celebrated its fifth class to be honored by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame with a Lifetime Service to Wrestling Award presented to Coach John M. Allen. Coach Allen began his lifetime commitment to wrestling some 50 years ago at St. Benedict's Prep School. Coach Allen coached 30 individual champions and 7 national prep champions, the foremost being Mike Caruso, who recorded an 81 wins to 0 loss high school record before earning 3 NCAA championships at Lehigh University. John is an exceptional individual. He has devoted his life in working with young people through athletics, teaching the skills and attitudes fundamental for success in sports, but more importantly, teaching his wrestlers how to win with humility and lose with grace and dignity. Coach Allen has always enjoyed the reputation of being a gentleman coach who brought credit to his profession, teams, schools, community, and family. And now, here is Coach Allen, who will instruct us on skills.
Working against hand control. For example, rips. When a man stands, some people peel fingers. They'll get one set of fingers or both sets of fingers and try to peel. If the man is only part way up and he already has the fingertips, either one set or both, what you want to do is bump him so that he has to either put his hands out to save himself from landing on his face or land on his face. So you don't let him get fully up if you can help it. If he gets up all the way and has a double rip grip, though it is now illegal, we will show what once was instructed to individuals to do. You would double underhook him. He'd still have the rip grips. He would still maintain those rip grips. You'd double underhook him, bump him with your hips, and drop him to his rump, and then come to your own knees. So you'd be in control. He's back down on the mat, and you're much with leverage to keep him under control. But that is now illegal. You can't bump and drop a man on his rump. It's dangerous to his spinal column. Somebody must have gotten hurt. If the opponent has a double rip grip and is trying to run forward to get away, rather than step out and disengage and pivot and face, he's trying to run away, that's when you might be able to accomplish a hard forward trip. You just forward trip him and bang him with your shoulder to drop him down toward the mat. Now if it's Oki 2-on-1 that he's after, more modern and a better way of getting the neutral off a stand-up. First of all, you want to prevent the stand-up or the swisher, which put him in position to execute Oki 2-on-1. And then you also want to realize that certain grips make you more vulnerable to Oki 2-on-1 than do others. For example, if you have only a waist and arm ride when he stands up, you're very vulnerable to Oki 2-on-1. If he stands and you get a counter wrist grip, he grabs wrist and you grab his wrist, you're very vulnerable to an inside Oki 2-on-1. If you have a body lock, and particularly if it's not very tight, you're very vulnerable to Oki 2-on-1. And once Oki 2-on-1 begins, it's very tough to stop. It is a great way to get a single point neutral. But one possible thought might be, sometimes you can, when an opponent gets a 2-on-1 grip on your wrist, you can make a quick shift of your body to the side of the opponent on which the 2-on-1 is being applied, and then wrap your other arm around his trunk, and then follow it all up by a forward trip, leg pinch style, to save yourself from a potential escape. One more time. He has the Oki 2-on-1. He's about to get his neutral. So in desperation, you shift to the other side of opponent. You put a pinch on his leg and do a forward trip and send him toward the mat. All right, continuing with Saturday moves and the counter moves that are a part of Saturday moves. We'll talk about working against high leg over. And for example, opponent might attempt a high leg over when you have him in a drag bypass position. As he attempts that high leg over, you have your instep behind his knee, and you use pressure with that foot to prevent the high leg over. As he tries to come into you, you press against that action and keep him from coming into you. If he's going to succeed, if he has that much power, or he started it early enough before you could apply the blocking pressure, then what you do is you take your free arm, bring it up to his waist so that you'll be able to later rotate his hips into your lap, and you slide your hips away from him a few inches so that he will land in your lap and you can place him in crab ride. One more time. As a man attempts high leg over, you can block it with your instep, but if, on the other hand, this is a moment where you can't block it with your instep, he's going to succeed with high leg over, then what you do is you shift your hips out from under him, reach up, have already reached up to grab the waist so that you can rotate his hips into you and get him in crab ride. Now, to show what would happen if you didn't do those things, we'll show the actual high leg over action in its fullest form. So we're in drag bypass position, and the opponent is going to be allowed this time to get that leg all the way across. Once he gets it across, he'll grab a knee, and once he gets a hold of that knee, you're trapped. All he has to do is free his leg, disentangle his leg and hip hoist, and he's got a complete reversal, and he may have more than that. You're in bad trouble. So you have to learn how to prevent high leg over action. It's important in this sport. Now, versus high turning, an escape reversal technique. Number one, you want to prevent the movement of opponent's legs. If you can prevent his legs from getting out to the front by hooking a leg or grabbing an ankle, that's ideal. If you sense a high turn imminent, you want to get and stay deep behind opponent's near arm. That's important also. You always want to be behind his arm. And you can use your arms as rudders to slow down his movement as he starts into high turn action. If you sense he doesn't have a real good grip on your wrist, you can go the other way. You can circle around to the other side of him and just come in behind in controlled position. If he has a good grip on your wrist, that sort of movement is impossible. He'll have such a bind on your arm, you won't be able to go the other way. So you have to come up with other means to control or to regain control. What you might do is circle to the side you're on and hook a leg. So you come around and you hook his leg, and then he won't be able to effectively complete his high turn action. If you find that you can't go one way or the other, you feel like you're stuck in front, and it can happen, it is something that does occur, to regain some leverage and control, you post your head into a cartwheel action to get to the far side of him, and then you're back in full control. As a last resort, if you're stuck out in front and you can't go one way, you can't go the other way, and you don't feel comfortable about doing a cartwheel to get to the other side of him, what you can do is let him come all the way around to face you and force him into duck under action, where he comes down toward his knees and starts to do duck under action. Just at that juncture, you can wing his arm, step across him, and still sustain your control. In other words, get to the other side of him and get control. One more time on that last aspect of staying in control versus high turn. He's gotten to the front. You feel trapped out in front. You feel defenseless against whatever it is he's going to do. So you invite his dropping down and starting into go-behind action via his sit-through. And just as he's at that juncture, you wing his arm, go to your shoulder, and do a step across. Get to the other side of him and get in control, and even maybe get more than that, get a pin grip. All right, versus inverted reverse headlock. Considering the potency of the pin grip, inverted reverse headlock, you have to become well aware of the prime lead-ups to inverted reverse headlock. That is, you have to know when to worry about potential vulnerability. Now, there are at least a half a dozen moments when a man could put you in this grip. We're just going to remind by using two of them. If you happen to be on your hip, you never want to reach back and grab the man's body trunk, back switch style. If you have made the mistake of reaching back from your hip, back switch style grip, your opponent can take what we call reverse overhook grip, And when he does that, that's the beginning of a NAS. When he now takes his knee and brings it to the other side of your head, the overhook grip and the knee across to the other side of the head is what we term a NAS. And now he can slide back and get you an inverted reverse headlock. Not good. So you have to be wary of NAS action versus a reach back when you're on your hip. Another possibility where an opponent could find you vulnerable to an inverted reverse headlock would be a snapback from sit-out, or against sit-out actually. He just grabs chin, has an underhook, and between his chin grip and the underhook he snaps back, and now he secures an inverted reverse headlock. Not good. So to avoid that, we say that when you get in a sit position, don't ever sit on both cheeks. Sit on one maybe, but not both. It makes it a lot tougher for the opponent to snap. You can then rotate away and recover base, and then his snap is very effective. All right, working versus leg hook. If opponent happens to be in a whizzer, you have him in a whizzer, and you're concerned about him hooking your leg, which you would have to be concerned about, you simply raise your foot, not your knee. You raise your foot in the air, move it into opponent, tight to him. You don't necessarily have to overhook his foot at all. Just press against his body, and it makes it tough for him to hook the leg. If your foot were not in tight to him, bring your foot out. Now the opponent could hook your leg. So you could easily hook with his heel. And so by bringing your foot in the air and pressing it against his body, perhaps his leg, you prevent him from hooking it. You block it. If you didn't have a whizzer in, and you were simply the bottom man, and he's riding your waist and arm, and you're concerned about him hooking your near leg, you can slide your foot across underneath your far instep. And by doing that, you're hiding your foot. He can't, with his heel, hook your lower leg. Or you can sit back on your foot. You can sit back into it. You can either go to a sitting position or simply just sit on the foot itself. If you cover your foot, he can't hook it. You can still maintain your base by keeping your knees spread. You'll maintain your base, but he can't hook your leg. So there are ways to block leg hook, and there are several ways to counter it, and we're going to show several of those ways. One method is to get a whizzer in, use drill action, and move to the front. So he has somehow secured the leg hook, and we'd like to get a whizzer in and counter the leg hook. Now, to get the whizzer in, we've got to free our arm. To free our arm, we're going to reach in with our free hand and touch his hand as a stimulus to get him to come in to try to get counter wrist grip buns. We release, raise up and out, immediately windmill a whizzer in, and then give him a jolt with the whizzer. Put a little pressure on with the whizzer, walk our fingers further down our leg to get a better whizzer, and then drill harder and sit through to the front and face him, and we're out. One more time, maybe a slightly different angle. He has the leg hooked. We reach in and touch his hand to get him to release our arm to come in to get our wrist. We immediately move our body out from under him, raise it up, and windmill the whizzer in. We always raise up to do it so that he can't put in double trouble as a counter move to our attempted whizzer. Once we've got the whizzer in, deliver a little jolt with the whizzer action, and then walk your fingers in deeper to get a better whizzer grip, and then give him another jolt, and if you feel it's sufficient, you sit through and come to the front and get a neutral. Two other methods, we'll do each of them once. One, cross wrist roll. He has the leg hooked. We reach under and get a cross wrist grip, left hand to right wrist. We bring our outside knee in as on regular far roll, and we complete the move as if it were a regular far roll. Sit up and we hip hoist, and we get the reverse on perhaps a finger. Also, a diagonal far roll, where we go to the shoulder. It could be dangerous. If you're not practiced at it, you could get your neck injured. So you You have to make sure you look away as you do it and make sure you're in a position to complete it. You get the regular wrist grip, not cross. All right, with the standard wrist grip, right hand to right wrist, we're going to our outside shoulder, and with our tied leg, we're going to lift them way up in the air and over, and we reverse them as per normal, as if it were a far roll once we get them airborne. Still other ways of countering leg hook. If the opponent happens to loop your near arm while he has a leg hook, he makes himself vulnerable to an inside drag. And it puts you in drag bypass position, and then you just work your way up on top and get your reversal. One more time. He has the leg hooked, and he's got a loop of the near arm. Sit through to the inside, do a little drag action, and get in drag bypass position, work your way up on top. You can also feint. Another little technique against leg hook, if he happens to loop your arm, is to plant your toes on the mat. The trapped leg toes get planted on the mat so that you'll be able to wheel into him, that is, bring your knee up into his chest and dump him over backwards. Once he's dumped backwards, you can grab his knee, disentangle your leg, and do a hip hoist, and you'll have him reverse to his back. Facing the exact opposite direction, so we get a better look at the toes being planted. He's got the leg hook, he's got a loop of the near arm. We plant the toes and bring the knee back up into his chest, pivot in action, and then completely reverse it. This time we're going to feint that sort of a wheel-in action and change direction and go to an outside switch. So initially it starts out the same. We're starting to plant the toes and we're starting to pivot into them, and then we change direction and go for an outside switch. Also against the leg hook, it's possible to use a far over hook, a Hun school type action, and what you do is you take your foot and bring it over what was his free foot. You raise your hips in the air a little bit, drive them into him. If he posts his hand for balance, which he's likely to do, that makes him vulnerable to a switch. He no longer has control of your arm. He is switchable. One more time. The opponent has hooked our leg. We overhook his free foot. We drive our hips into him after raising him in the air. He posts his hand. We change off to a switch. Now, if we care not to switch, if we care and we sense we're going to be able to, we care to get our hips all the way across him. We get our hips up in the air, drive all the way across, a little high leg over action, grab his knee, and put him in a leg over cradle. One more time. Leg over cradle is a possible follow-up to Hun school action that is an overhook of his free foot. So we overhook the free foot, get our hips in the air, drive into him, do a little high leg over action, grab the near leg, and turn it into a leg over cradle. All right, some things possible against Navy ride, sometimes called lace ride. What you do is you sit up, you post two hands, and use the power of your hips to hip hoist the base so that he no longer has a Navy ride. One more time. He's got your Navy. And to get out of the grip, you post your hands, get your hips in the air just a little bit so that you can hip hoist using the power of your hips to recover your base. Or, sometimes possible, you can push the man's head down deep into your groin area and whip your leg up over his head and back and recover base going to the outside. One more time. He has Navy. You push his head down deep into the groin area and then whip your leg up over his head and back and recover your base. If the opponent has the Navy and is lifting to get a reverse Nelson or a half Nelson, your worst worry is the reverse Nelson. So you fight it, you fight it, you fight it, and knowing that eventually when you rotate inward, he's going to go after a half Nelson, you turn inward with your hand close to your chest so he can't get it, and again, recover base quickly to the inside. So if you are fighting the lift, fighting the lift, fighting the lift, but eventually realizing you're not going to be able to fight it forever and will have to turn in, you turn in hard, hand close to body, and recover your base. Now against stretcher scissors. If opponent applies stretcher scissors, we immediately try to get to our butt and then reach across, cross-foot grab style. Reach across our body, grab the sole of the foot, then with our other hand, grab our own wrist, and then with our elbow placed against his calf, we create some pain in his calf area. And when he feels the pain, it'll loosen his grip a little bit, which will allow us to dip our hips down, and then we can do what's called a leg cross, and we come out the back door. One more time. The opponent has us in a stretcher scissors. He's got both feet around to the front and inside. We get to our butt before he can dump us down on our face. We reach across our body, get a cross-foot grab on one of his feet, grab our own wrist, place our elbow against the soft tissue in his calf, create some pain, dip down, do a leg crawl, and come out the back door. Get a reversal. Also against stretcher scissors, if we can get to our butt and he won't let us get a cross-foot grab, he won't allow us to sit up that much to do it, we'll spread our feet so if he can't rotate us back under, drive back into him as if to pin him, but knowing that that'll be difficult, we don't stay with it. We just threaten him, make him worry about that, and then corkscrew our body quickly in his grasp. And as he tries to climb and get his hips on top, work our arm through, cross his body, and get the reversal. One more time. He has stretcher scissors. We've managed to get to our butt and not get flattened out prone on our stomach and face. We plant our feet wide so he can't get us back under with himself up on top, his hips on top. Drive back into him as if to pin him. And then when he feels threatened and we feel his grip loosen, we corkscrew our body and eventually work our arm between his body and ours and reach across him and trap him down on his back. Now against Turk. If opponent reaches down to grab the knee and we anticipate he's doing it to get a Turk, we immediately tilt our hip into him, just enough that he cannot scoop that knee, pull it out and up, and effectively execute a Turk. We don't go to our hip, we just give contrary hip tilt action, so he can't get a Turk. If he happens to get the Turk, to get out of the Turk, we'll push on the near hip with one hand, try to pull our tied leg up out of the Turk, that is, loosen it somewhat. Get it loose enough that we can bring our free knee across in front of his abdomen and recover base. One more time at a different angle. All right, from this different angle now, the opponent has reached down to grab our knee. We're going to tilt the hip into it, making it extremely difficult for him to pull that knee out and up so that he can step in for a Turk. So a contrary hip tilt is sufficient to stop the Turk. If he succeeds in getting the Turk, once again, the counter move, we take our hand, put it against his hip, push on that hip, slide our leg a little loose, that is, loosen it in his grasp. Once it's loose enough, we can take our free knee, bring it across underneath his gut, and rise to base. That we do, and we're back to base. There is no better way to end this film than by countering cheap tilts that I hate. So we'll just show. All right, we'll demonstrate what I mean by a cheap tilt. I mean, the opponent simply has waist and arm, no wrist or anything of that sort. He's got waist and arm, and he brings you into him using a knee block to get some near fall points. He won't get a pin. If ever it were to happen, rather than allow yourself to be put to your back and stop, you go with it and go immediately after a headlock when you get on the other side and make him pay, that miserable bastard, for having attempted a cheap tilt dive.
Okay.